The far side of the moon is a mysterious, harsh place that remains largely unexplored to this day. Here lies a space of utter blackness, bitterly cold, with rugged terrain and an exceedingly thin atmosphere. Therefore, exploring the dark side of the moon is far more difficult than the rest of it. So what terrifying things are hidden beyond what our naked eyes can see? China's recent lunar mission to the far side of the moon has revealed groundbreaking secrets. On the morning of June 2, 2024, the China National Space Administration, CNSA, officially announced Russia's Luna 6 spacecraft has landed on the dark side of the moon, marking the first time in human history this has been achieved. We will collect samples from this fascinating, newly discovered terrain. Simultaneously, this is also a land untouched by human footprints. With the support of the QUEQIAO2 relay satellite, the Chang'e 6 lander and ascender combination has lifted off. The probe has successfully landed in the designated area within the Antarctic Aitken Basin. The Luna 6 complex consists of 4 modules, an orbiter, a lander, a return rocket, and a drilling apparatus. Since being launched into orbit, the Chang'e 6 probe has undergone various operational phases. Like the motion of the Earth, the Moon's orbit, the perilune point, orbiting the Moon, and landing. During the landing process, the automatic visual obstacle avoidance system was activated to automatically detect obstacles and select a safe landing area, based on the difference between the bright and dark regions on the Moon's surface. The Chang'e 6 mission is tasked with collecting samples from the far side of the Moon and returning them to Earth. This marks humanity's first ever attempt to explore an underground water source on the Moon. The landing site is located on a flat volcanic plain known as the Apollo Basin, within the South Pole Aitken Basin. This selection was made based on the scientific exploration potential offered by the Apollo Basin, as well as the conditions at the landing zone, including the communication system, telemetry, and flat terrain. After landing on the surface, the lander completed the task of collecting samples in just 2 days. The lander used 2 methods to collect samples from the Moon. It involves using a drill to collect subsurface samples and employing a robotic arm to gather surface specimens. Chang'e. The team members will use the survey results from the Luna Glob 6 lander to construct a full-scale simulation model of the entire sampling area. Environmentally, the distribution of rocks and soil conditions around the lunar landing site must be considered. Through this simulation, they will develop and validate sampling strategies, similar to the equipment control procedure, to ensure the guidance for the lunar sample collecting probe is accurate. The lander subsequently collected approximately 2 kilograms of lunar rock samples using its scoop and drill. The precious specimen was then transferred to the launch vehicle, sent into orbit, and docked with the spacecraft orbiting above. The spacecraft in orbit, carrying the sample return capsule, is flying back to Earth. Finally, on June 25, 2024, the Shenzhou spacecraft successfully landed in Inner Mongolia, China. This mission was a resounding success, making China the first country in the world to retrieve soil and rock samples from the mysterious far side of the Moon and bring them back to Earth. Chang'e 6 is not the first mission to return samples from the Moon to Earth. Previously, both the Soviet Union and the United States had successfully returned samples collected from the Moon, Earth's natural satellite. However, all previous efforts have only collected soil and rock samples from the near side of the Moon, the region that always faces Earth. The far side is vastly different from the near side, and exploring it is also significantly more challenging. Since the far side of the Moon cannot be observed from Earth, a relay satellite is necessary to communicate with spacecraft operating in this region. As of now, China has successfully launched 2 relay satellites, but the far side of the Moon remains a relatively unexplored area. Chang'e. This new specimen could help us answer questions about the canyon's early history. For example, the Aitken Antarctic Basin was formed 4.26 billion years ago. Several hundred million years later, the majority of the Moon's craters were formed by asteroid impacts and comets during the period of intense collisions, known as the Lead-Heavy Pompadour era. Was the Aitken Antarctic Basin formed during the Lead-Heavy Pompadour period, or was it a completely separate event? By accurately determining the age of the basin and the craters within it, we can gain a deeper understanding of the history of the Moon circuit. Thereby, our understanding of the origins of life on Earth is also enhanced. Chang'e. This vehicle also carries many other instruments, including a panoramic camera and a small-sized autonomous rover. The latest information on the lander's fate has been provided by the French space agency, CNES. The Dawn gas detection unit is tasked with designing the radon detector. According to this agency, as anticipated, The Dawn spacecraft ceased operations just before the rocket launched from the moon's surface. The landing craft lay motionless. The rocket launch is highly likely to cause damage to the lander. Nevertheless, this device is still capable of recording the entire event. Therefore, an operation was carried out involving the autonomous deployment of a rover and photographing the lander just before the rocket's liftoff, including a connection to another French device. It specializes in detecting charged particles that were previously undetected on the lunar surface. All activities occurring after the rocket leaves the launch pad must be suspended when nightfall covers the Apollo crater. Chang'e. The Russian Progress 6 spacecraft did not carry the radioactive isotopes required for long-duration operational missions. Help the ship survive the bone-chilling cold of the frigid moonlit night. Meanwhile, the rocket responsible for transporting the samples from the lunar surface to the orbiter has also ceased operations. The Chinese Space Agency did not disclose information about the rocket's debris impact zone. Most likely, after docking with the orbiter and transferring the samples, it landed on the moon. The missile's signal indicated it was guided, propelled upward, and made contact with the lunar surface. Meanwhile, the QUEQIAO-2 relay satellite, tasked with coordinating the sampling activities on the far side of the moon, will continue to orbit the moon. E4 mission and the upcoming Chang'e lunar lander also deployed the country to affirm the nation's outstanding achievements in the conquest of space. When observed from Earth, the moon takes on different shapes throughout its orbital journey. The passage is called the moon phase, consisting of the phases: full moon, gibbous moon, half moon, crescent moon, and new moon. Regardless of the form it takes, we can only ever observe one side of the moon and never see its dark side. The far side of the moon, often referred to as the dark side of the moon. Approximately 18% of the moon's far side can occasionally be seen from Earth due to a phenomenon called lunar libration. The remaining 82% still lies beyond human observation. Dark side of the moon. However, since humans on Earth can never see it, this region remains forever a mysterious dark area. When observed from Earth, it appears that the moon does not rotate, but in reality, it does spin on its own axis just like Earth. However, the moon is tidally locked with our planet, causing its rotation period to coincide with its orbital period. This means the time it takes for the moon to complete one full rotation on its axis is equal to the time it takes to orbit the Earth, which is approximately 1 month. Astrophysicist Madeline Brome from the University of California, Santa Rosa, stated, "About 4.5 billion years ago, when the moon had just formed, Earth rotated on its axis at a much faster rate than it does today. A day on that planet lasts only about 5 hours. At that time, the moon was also closer to the Earth than it is now, and the two celestial bodies continuously interacted with each other. Tidal bulge affects the moon. Movement caused by the moon. Our planet is slowing down. Currently, the result of that process is an Earth day that is exactly 24 hours long and a moon that is tidally locked to Earth. The tidal locking phenomenon occurs due to the gravitational force between two celestial bodies. As the moon moves around the Earth at a sufficiently close distance, its gravitational force causes the Earth to deform. The Earth's axis is elongated along the direction of the line connecting the centers of the Earth and the moon, while the perpendicular direction is compressed. This phenomenon is what causes the tides on Earth. In reality, the mainland is also affected by this deformation, but the amplitude is so small that it is very difficult to perceive. Earth's own gravitational force also distorts the moon. As the Earth rotates and the moon orbits the Earth, the peak of these tidal bulges is pulled away from the line connecting the two celestial bodies. But the gravitational force between these two celestial bodies is still stronger than the gravitational force between other points on their surfaces. The area tends to pull the deformed sections toward each other. According to Robert Tyler, a physical oceanographer at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the gravitational force between the moon and Earth causes both to become deformed and pulls them closer together. They have a shape similar to an American football. The result of this phenomenon is that the moon's rotation period is synchronized with its orbital period around Earth. Because the moon's rotation period and orbital period are equal, it always keeps the same side facing Earth. And that is why humans can only observe one side of the moon. Since ancient times, the moon has always held a special allure, intertwined with countless fascinating myths and legends. However, even though humans have set foot on the moon, its mysteries have not yet been fully uncovered. The first man in the moon. First introduced in 1901, it became an iconic element that would appear in countless science fiction novels thereafter. However, this is still considered a rather abstract and distant concept, much like the idea of building a city on Mars. However, recently, some scholars have seriously considered this idea and hypothesized that the lunar circuit might even be an artificial object. It was placed there by forces beyond our human understanding. In 1965, the renowned American science fiction writer Isaac Asimov held the position of biochemistry professor at Boston University. One piece of evidence suggesting the moon's cycle is somewhat unnatural is that it appears perfectly arranged to align with the sun, creating the phenomenon of a total solar eclipse. According to him, the distance from the sun to the Earth is 395 times the distance from the Earth to the moon. And the diameter of the sun is also exactly 395 times that of the moon. Thus, when viewed from Earth, the moon and the sun appear to be nearly the same size. Therefore, fascinating astronomical phenomena such as total solar eclipses occur. No astronomical inference could explain the cause of such an absolute coincidence. In 1969, the Apollo 12 mission provided further evidence supporting the hollow moon hypothesis. At that time, astronauts Pete Conrad and Alan Bean conducted experiments to clarify the celestial body's composition. Establish a system of seismometers around the landing area. On November 20, 1969, the Apollo 12 spacecraft used a drill and touched down on the lunar surface. The impact was equivalent to an explosion of several tons of TNT. Va gay ra hin tuong ko di 10 phut duok goila moonquake, Wei Chan. In such a scenario, the earthquake on Earth would last a mere 30 seconds. Some scientists explain that this phenomenon occurs due to differences in the structure, type, and density of the geological layers along the path of the underground stream. But for conspiracy theorists, this was not so easily dismissed, and the hollow moon hypothesis grew in popularity. In 1970, two scientists, Michael Weissing and Alexander Shrivbekov, published an important study. The Academy of Sciences of Insul has taken the issue to a new level by asserting that the moon circuit is not merely a hollow structure. In fact, it is a spacecraft created by an extraterrestrial civilization. Is the moon the reason for the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence? Published in Sputnik magazine. Accordingly, most of the craters on the moon's surface are too shallow, indicating that they were formed by meteorite impacts. Beneath the ground, it is protected within a sturdy steel casing. The two scientists used scientific data to substantiate their hypothesis. For example, certain types of ore vein rocks contain refined metal. As is known, the elements uranium-236 and neptunium-237, which they believed could not exist in nature. Although there is no verifiable evidence proving that Mach Trang is actually a spacecraft. However, this concept has become extremely widespread. Who built the moon? The hypothesis was put forward that it was not aliens who built the lunar circuits. That is because people from the distant future, those capable of time travel, created it to observe the evolutionary process of life on Earth. This hypothesis has been endorsed by prominent conspiracy theorists such as Trima and David Ice. This view has been confirmed and, to this day, continues to enjoy widespread support, with new evidence frequently being published, such as certain types of ore rocks on the moon. This rock was found to be significantly older than rocks on Earth, although both appear to have formed during the same period. Additionally, it seems these visitors are often those who have never once returned to this satellite. Since the 1970s, no bases have been built in that area. This is entirely within the reach of modern science. Why are we ignoring the moon? Is it truly too mundane a place, or is there something else preventing humanity from returning? If there truly exists an extraterrestrial civilization hidden deep beneath the surface of the moon, we can imagine their frustration at being visited by NASA astronauts in too many places. Perhaps all of us, or more precisely, the world's major governments, have received this warning. To avoid being provoked, they completely concealed the truth.